could find himself back in the hot seat and in a lot of hot water in front of British lawmakers. Evidence has come to light that phone hacking was widely discussed at the former News of the World tabloid. And British MPs want to know if Murdoch misled them when he stood before a parliamentary committee just last month. Senior international correspondent Dan Rivers is live at CNN London trying to sort through this very complicated story. What it boils down to, I think, is that email purportedly sent by a royal correspondent of News of the World.
Yeah, I mean, that's one incredibly damaging document. Here it is, Jim. It's a letter written to News International's Human Resources Department from Clive Goodman, the disgraced royal editor. After he came out of jail, he was put in prison for phone hacking. After he came out, he wrote this letter essentially saying, I was promised my job back if I didn't implicate the newspaper. The exact quotes are, I was promised by Tom Crone, the chief lawyer for News International and the editor, I could come back to a job at the newspaper if I did not implicate the newspaper or any of its staff in my mitigation plea. I did not, and I expect the paper to honour its promise to me. That in itself is pretty damning. But he also says of phone hacking, the practice was widely discussed at the daily editorial conference until explicit references to it were banned by the editor. Now, the editor at the time was, of course, Andy Coulson, the number 10 communications director until fairly recently. What's even more damning, Jim, is that two copies of this letter were sent to the committee. One was sent by the lawyers for News International, the former lawyers, Harbottle and Lewis. Another was sent by News International itself. And in the copy that's sent by News International, they have actually, you can see here, redacted out any reference to the editorial conference or the editor, trying to protect, it seems, Andy Coulson's reputation in all this. He, of course, was forced to resign as editor of the News of the World, also then forced to stand down from his job at 10 Downing Street, and has since been arrested by the police as part of this ongoing investigation. There's a whole raft of other documents there. I won't bog you down with too much detail, but in short, it is pretty damning for News International. There is now a possibility that James Murdoch, at least, will be asked to come back and clarify his earlier statements to that committee.
All right, you know, sometimes it's easy for us as we cover the ins and outs of these kinds of investigations to forget what it's all about. What were these guys really doing? As journalists, they were getting the inside scoop, not by going out and talking to sources, but by hacking phones.
Yeah, I mean, essentially this boils down to certain tabloid newspapers, primarily the News of the World, but others have been implicated, running their operation a bit like a spying agency, eavesdropping into the answer phone messages, the cell phone messages of celebrities, of politicians, of pretty much anyone they wanted, right down to or up to the victims of, you know, families of the victims of murder, the murdered schoolgirl Millie Dowler. That one single revelation that they had allegedly hacked into a murdered schoolgirl's voicemail was the thing that really caused this story to explode and to become a big political issue.
They were their own MI7.5, and as I understand, the police were involved too.
Quite, yeah. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. There is a weight of evidence now showing that not only were they illegally hacking into all kinds of people's voicemails, but also they were paying police officers for information about, for example, the royal family. Now, all this is being looked at by the police under Operation Wheating. It's a massive investigation now involving 60 officers. But you're right, yeah, I mean, they were essentially completely riding roughshod over the law of the land and doing whatever they thought it took to get a story, even if that meant hacking phones, paying off police officers, breaking the law left, right and centre. That's the allegation. News International all along has started along saying this was just the actions of Clive Goodman, a rogue reporter. Now, that assertion has been undermined massively. They've now admitted it's gone further than that. Other people have been arrested as part of that police inquiry. What we haven't yet proven, or what hasn't been proven, is that James Murdoch himself was aware of what was going on and tried to cover it up. Now, that's what these politicians want to question him further on. How much did he know about phone hacking when they paid off Gordon Taylor almost £1 million, including legal fees. Why did he sign that cheque, and what did he know? Dan
Rivers in London, real good brief there on what's actually going on in this investigation, in this case, and why it matters. Dan, as always, great to have you with the brief. All right.